Pancake syrup, have a taste of you. What would happen if HEX went to 0? HEX from Ethereum. eHEX to 0. Today's video, I'm going to speak to you about why the eHEX pHEX debate is pretty useless, how I think about this, and why it's probably going to trade to parity anyway. And I'm going to tell you some interesting things about how I conceptualize this and why everybody is wasting their time. So I'm also going to show you why eHEX going to 0 would destroy pHEX. The people in the divorced maxis, so the people who want to support pHEX, they are the people who want eHEX to go to 0, okay? People who support both, we're just like, let the market play with it. Let's just hold both. Let's not keep HEX go to 0 anywhere. That's not pretty good marketing, right? It's like if you have a Ferrari, you don't want $10,000 Ferraris to be sold out to third world countries to drop the brand name, right? This argument is going to probably shock you. I hope you believe me, but I don't really care because I've already made my bets. Okay, my portfolio is positioned. So there is a debate here, the great HEX debate. Furu versus Mr. Tangent. Mr. Furu, Mr. Tangent. 3 hours, okay? And they basically go through all the arguments, and they're pretty good arguments. Left side, right side, about how the ecosystem flourishes if, you know, eHEX survives. Mr. Furu is for the pHEX camp. But this is where I come in, okay? I'm going to tell you something right now. You are seeing right now bottom signals, okay? But they are only bottom signals because the crypto community is still growing, especially for HEX. You have Pulse Chain, all right? If eHEX went to 0, this is the chart. If it went to 0, like it actually went to 0 and everybody went to pHEX, you're going to be very disappointed because I'm telling you, I can see the future. You don't have to believe me, but I can see the future. Let me tell you something. pHEX divorced ones believe this fatal, critical prediction of the future. They actually believe that if eHEX went to 0, so if HEX from Ethereum, right? This is HEX from Ethereum, okay? They believe if this thing went to 0, I know it's pretty much near 0. It's 98% down, right? They believe if this actually went to 0, right? That pHEX would get all the value and it would continue. Wrong, wrong, wrong. No, it wouldn't, okay? You think it would, and logically you think it would. But I know markets. I know the psychology of retailers. I know how they behave, all right? Now, I'm assuming Greg, the OA, Ricardo himself, does not intervene. I'm assuming he lets it go. If we send eHEX to 0, I promise you, the HEX brand is damaged. pHEX does not pump anywhere near as much as the value of eHEX and pHEX combined. Okay, so you don't actually get all that. And a lot of HEX believers, HEX maxis, will be very disappointed because the same arguments that the pHEX people used to spit on eHEX about not being the cool kid, about believing the Ethereum gas fees and, oh, we're the better fork. These same arguments there will be used by new people coming in as they onboard, as they buy Pulse and PulseX. They will say HEX is that weird thing with no utility. It's trying to be a weird Bitcoin. It's not even its own chain. And it's cycle 2. They've already rejected HEX. That's what you don't know. Most people don't actually know this, but it's actually the truth. A lot of people have already heard about it. Of course, it's already had a cycle, okay? You can't game this. If we go to the pHEX chart, okay, you can't game the whole thing. You can't say, hey, well, you know, pHEX is cycle 1. Nope. I wish it was like that. Won't happen, all right? Won't happen. So there are so many things you got to understand about this pHEX, eHEX debate. At the end of the day, we have a chart we can look at for the ratio, okay? We can look at the ratio between eHEX and pHEX. And right now it's like 0.79. Maybe it goes down, maybe it goes up. I don't really care to argue with words. I vote with my wallet. That's what I do. I allocate capital. That's my job, all right? That's literally what I love doing. I love playing the game. So I think it's going to trade at parity. That's what I think, and I've already positioned for it. Now, I'm not 100% in pHEX, of course not, but I'm just heavier weight in eHEX, and if it goes down more, I will keep collecting more. Thank you. Hand it over to me. That's cool. I'll keep buying. So I'm looking at where this thing trades, and I can see it trading at parity, and I'm literally the only person saying, hey, I think it's going to trade above parity. Don't ask me the story. Don't ask me the narrative. Don't ask me how, why, when. I'm just telling you, I can feel it. Something weird's going to happen in the future. At some point between now and December 2025, it'll probably trade like that. So all these arguments about what's better or not doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Because it's the same as, if I get this chart here, have you heard of a little coin called Ethereum and a little coin called Bitcoin? There are people saying that Bitcoin is a better store of value than Ethereum because Bitcoin is meant to be hoarded 100%. They say this till their tongues turn blue. They say this until that pancake strip drips all the way down the table and they got to wipe up the floor. That's how much pancake strip we're going around right here. It doesn't matter. All that matters, if you put it on a linear chart, all that matters is that ETH BTC has been going up and it's not going to zero, okay? So all those arguments about if Bitcoin has a bigger store of value capability, it's adopted by a country, Elon Musk likes it, it's store of value meme and strong, it doesn't really matter. ETH BTC is going up. So does it really matter? I mean, you can have a 3-hour debate with somebody about Bitcoin storing value better than Ethereum, but all of that gets blown out the door because this thing has been going up. And just a friendly reminder, because this is the ETH BTC ratio, when this is green, that means Ethereum is winning against Bitcoin. It's risk on. When this is down, Ethereum is losing against Bitcoin. Have you noticed in this bear market, we have made a higher floor from 2019 and 2020. What happens if we go up here and eventually flip it? I want you to think about that. So you go back to this eHEX and pHEX, this argument, everyone's talking about it. Yeah, we got this ratio. I don't really care. I don't really care. I'm positioned for it, right? So there's no 3-hour argument here. I don't have to explain anything to anyone. I don't care. I don't care. It's cheap. That's it. Cheap is cheap. Doesn't mean it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It just means the ratio is cheap. This is what happens in markets. See, when you watch a lot of influencers, mainstream crypto people, they're constantly talking about the narrative. And a lot of you have seen in the comments, you are my baby doll baby cakes, please like, subscribe button, or share with your friends and family. A lot of people, there's a demand. They're like, tell me what you think about the news. Tell me about the debt deal. Tell me about interest rates. Tell me about this and that. What you're doing is you're just letting that media narrative feed to you. You actually think the candles have anything to do with those stories. Because we're in the HEX and Pulse Chain ecosystem. Let me tell you something. Ricardo Corazon himself, you can put interest rates to 10% tomorrow. You can say we're never going to do QE. You can remove the debt ceiling. You can do weird stuff as a politics. I'll tell you now, you are not going to stop somebody from coming here and saying, you know what? I think eHEX is worth more than pHEX. See you later. Here's my click. You can't stop that. You see the point? Now, it's lucky for us. We get to see this as a microcosm of the whole economy and everything in markets because we're in HEX and Pulse Chain ecosystem. We're so small, it's obvious to us. But now I promise you, it's the same thing in all markets. It doesn't really matter. It's going to probably price itself that way anyway. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to go there and sit here because this thing is not 100% linked in, but really doesn't matter at the end of the day. For example, does it really matter whether Ethereum is a better store of value than Bitcoin? Doesn't matter. ETH BTC is going up. It's been trending up. It's got strength. Who cares? Who cares? Right? So if eHEX went to zero, one of the fallacies is people believe, so let's say this ratio actually went down, right? So this ratio went down. People incorrectly assume that they think that pHEX is now suddenly going to rise. HEX on Pulse Chain is now going to rise and it's going to be absolutely amazing. People believe this thing is going to go, this is going to double. They think it's all going to go in. Wrong. Once you infect people with the sight of a red candle attached to this brand name, you will not shake it off, my friends. You won't shake it off no matter how hard you try. And by the way, I'm assuming Ricardo himself doesn't do a God hand intervention himself. So I'm just letting free marketing. I'm just telling you, you run this scenario 100 times, you don't get your dream scenario. What you might find is Now that eHEX has gone to zero, you've damaged the brand. All right, you've damaged the brand. Psychologically, people have now seen a big fat red candle. They've seen this never recover. Okay, they've seen this literally go all the way down, all the way down. This becomes a lunar chart. People want nothing to do with his name. They don't even want those 3 letters on the code, on the ticker code. All right. Mind you, this will also look very, very bad for optics. What happened to the scams that we bag out on CoinGecko? If you let eHEX go to zero, okay, I know the community is not, it's a free open market, okay, we'll see what happens. But if you let it go to zero, you become the scam on the coin ranking page. You become everything that you've been fighting against. You don't like when UST was listed on CoinGecko here, top 10. You didn't like when Luna was listed here. Yeah, well, what about eHEX? That's another scam. It's gone to zero. It's abandoned. And you might say, no, that's not the real coin anymore. We got the real coin. People don't know that. You know, people just come in and click. You know exactly what's going to happen. So you open up a whole can of worms. Now, these are just theoreticals because I already know it ain't happening. I already know it's not happening. What would happen to people who have Rolex watches if they heard Rolex was releasing a $500 cheap version and they're just mass spamming it out to everybody out there, lower class society, McDonald's workers? What do you think would happen to the people's perception of Rolex who now own it? I tell you right now, that brand name is going to the gurgler. It is going down. You are destroying everybody's sense of scarcity. Okay, so no matter what you say, you might point the finger and go, no, that's not the real one. We got the real one. Doesn't matter. Me and you, we understand the game. But the real game is to get the next 100 million people coming into crypto who don't understand the game. So you have to go off the optics of what they see when they come in. Okay, and they're not going to see, oh, don't worry about the fake one. We're going to buy the real one. They ain't going to say that, okay? So once you've infected them with seeing a big, fat, disgusting red candle that goes to zero with eHEX and the community abandons it, you have now let them know HEX has been abandoned before. You don't give them any sense of security. HEX is meant to be a store of value like Bitcoin. Well, let me tell you something. Would a store of value have a community who can just walk away from it and it to die? Doesn't happen with gold. Doesn't happen with silver. It doesn't happen with stores of value, all right? If you can walk away from it in 3 seconds, in a day, in a month, and it just goes to zero and gets abandoned, well, you ain't really a store of value. You're just like a normal pump and dump altcoin. You're just pretending to everybody about the meme of store of value. That's what you actually are. So it depends on the community. Do they want to keep it or not? Well, I think it doesn't really matter what anybody really thinks. I think it's going to trade back up anyway. I think, woohoo, I think it's going to confuse everybody, right? So these arguments, they don't really have to be discussed at all. I just think it's going to trade up above zero. Just like how I think ETH BTC is going to go to 0.10, right? The exact same thing. Because I think ETH BTC is going to go up here, do I need to give you like a 4-page essay about why Ethereum's monetary premium and the burning, and it's a store of value, and then it's a public good, and Vitalik's brain is huge? Do I need to tell you that? No. I've just got to be positioned long Ethereum. You let the market decide. That's it. You let the market decide. The pricing mechanism fixes everything, all right? And anything that needs to get wiped out, it'll get wiped out. So this is what would happen. If eHEX actually went to zero, you're not going to get your beautiful utopia world of, okay, now all the money's going to come into pHEX and we're going to pump. You're going to be very mistaken, my friend. Do you know what's going to happen? Now that you've infected everybody with the sight of seeing a HEX go to zero and stay zero, they are not touching that ticker. They're going to Pulse and PulseX. I promise you that. I already know they're going there anyway, okay? I know in my heart, Pulse and PulseX, they're Cycle 1 coins, okay? They're Cycle 1 coins. Cycle 1 coins obliterate Cycle 2 coins, friends. There are a lot of people in the HEX community. They run the risk of being blindsided by what's happening here. Ethereum gains against Bitcoin, all right? Ethereum gains against Bitcoin. The layer 1 chain with exciting stuff gains against the store of value. All right, it's gaining. Who's to say that this chart won't happen for Pulse against HEX? Okay, who's to say this chart doesn't become PulseX or PulseX HEX? All right, so remember that the numerator, the one on top, are the cycle 1 coins, so that the coins would go up. A lot of people just believe, no, HEX is a supreme store of value. No, you can say that all you want. It's cycle 2. It's not the cool kid on the block anymore. It's not the new sexy shiny thing. It ain't. You can pretend it is, but it ain't. PLS PLSX. Look at the volume. It got listed straight away. There's less gatekeeping. All of that shebang. Straight away. You got to see it. Bang. All right. So this utopia about, hey, you know, if we kill eHEX, then it's all going to pump to pHEX. No. You might actually find, once you get people in the mindset of selling and trimming and thinking about other stuff, once they leave that eHEX mindset, they'll probably go and be like, you know what? I'm going to get some Pulse, get some PulseX. That's what you might, and you find that they end up doing. And this chart is inverted. See, a lot of these people, when they see this chart, it's HEX on top here, okay? You don't want to do that, because just like we chart ETH BTC, the layer 1 divided by the store of value. So I'm going to invert the pair so you can see it here. This is what we see right now, okay? So everybody is charting it the other way. This is Pulse over, this is Pulse over, over HEX, okay? Now, cycle 1 coins, sexier than cycle 2, that's it. We all know it. Many people think this might range forever. It might. But I reckon there's a chance this thing just grinds up. Maybe not forever, because I think there's going to be an intervention, and we can speak about that another time. But left to itself, I think Pulse and PulseX will gain on HEX. Cycle 1 coins are powerful. You can't beat it. It's a whole new beginning, whole new network effect. It's the new kid. There are no baggages. There's more euphoria. People don't know, is it going to go 20x, 50x? What's the price? 1000x, can I get there? Right? With HEX, you already know, friends, right? You know there's a lot of bag holders here. You know there is. There are a lot of people ready. You know there is a lot of people ready to dump right here. You already know this. You can see the chart. You know when it hits $1 that all the stakers are going to emergency end stake and just clobber it down. You already know this. So you think, what's the point? I'll tell you what the point is. If I can see it, the market can see it. The collective mindset of everybody can see it. So I already know nobody is going to buy HEX at 90 cents with max leverage the first time. They're already waiting for that elusive $1 mark, the round number. These things act like gravity, okay? Now, HEX is more safe, so it's still great to exist, but it's not the cool kid on the block anymore. Pulse and PulseX are. Store of value, really weird. You know, I have an example with a friend, my friend Sid. He asked me, he goes, what's even the rich and hard ecosystem? What do the coins do, right? So I explained to him, I go, well, HEX is like Bitcoin, store of value. Pulse is like Ethereum, right? Layer 1, paying for gas. And PulseX is just like Uniswap, but without a dodgy founder who actually wants to help shareholders instead of dump on them with a $1 billion OTC transaction. And he said, okay, my friend, I get all of them. He goes, but be serious about the HEX one. I promise you, by the way, Sid, if you're listening, yes, he actually said this to me. He thought I was joking about the HEX description. I said, no, bro, it's modeled after Bitcoin. It's meant to give yield. You just don't have a miner. You just stake it yourself. Yes, so just to let you know, he straight away, in 2 seconds, as like what you'd call, say, a retailer outside coming in, he straight away understood, okay, I like Pulse, I like PulseX. What's this weird HEX thing? Straight away. He was in like denial. I was like, what's this weird? Like, he goes, trying to be Bitcoin. You see what I mean? Now, if I can sniff it on him, think about the default action of the next 100 million people coming in, okay? What do you think the net effect is going to be? Do you think the net effect of them is going to be buying a cycle 2 coin higher than the cycle 1? Probably not. Just like how ETH BTC goes up, You might find same thing happens with the ratios, right? With Pulse to HEX. So I mentioned before there might be an intervention. Well, this is where I really think what would happen, right? I think Pulse, if you put a water pistol to my head, I think Pulse and PulseX are the spears. I think they shoot up. Okay? I think they shoot up. Now, I want to see this distance. Yeah, I can see this about 2 to 3x above HEX. I can see this happening. And then I can see them ranging, right? Now, it depends. Because of obviously all the liquidity bonding, you got to decide for yourself, what do you think is going to be more powerful? Richard defending the sanctity of HEX to bring the ratio in line, or retailers coming and clobbering up, smashing up Pulse and PulseX? That is something we don't know, and we'll never know until we live it. But I know what the default effect is, okay? The default effect is probably net buying into Pulse and PulseX compared to HEX. Pulse and PulseX outperform HEX, okay? I know a lot of people get triggered when they hear this because they're still holding HEX, like me and everyone else, but they believe in this. HEX is the premier store of value and the game theory, and we're all staked, okay? Well, let me tell you something, right? Let me tell you something, okay? Your staking average lockup 7 years, did it stop you from 98%? Did the game theory stop you from minus 98%? Okay. HEX has now been going down longer than it's been going up. Okay, I just made a tweet. 637 days. We can measure it right now. It went up for 637 days, and anybody who bought in 2021, basically nothing. Okay. So everybody, only the people who bought at the very, very start. I know everybody says, yes, there was a lot of FUD. Yeah, but you got rewarded for it, okay? So everyone else who bought for the past 60, 70% of its life, they've been hearing the FUD too, but they've been punished for it the whole time, okay? So that's just the reality of it. So you just got to decide how you process this and your odds going forward. So you can actually do something about this. You can. It's to do with your portfolio weight, all right? Now, I believe right now, eHEX obviously is the cheapest by far. It is absolutely thrashed compared to everything else. But I'm exploring what is the correct weight to have moving forward for the next 24 to 30 months. Because I'll tell you right now, stacking HEX compared to all of them ain't the right move. Ain't the right move. HEX is having an identity crisis. Okay, people are like, what's the real HEX? What about HEX Fair? What about HEX on Ethereum proof of work? Right? What even is it? This type of split, you already know, man. You already know. The new people coming in, they're not going to care about it. It ain't cycle one. That's it. They want a cycle one coin. Pulse and PulseX, cycle ones. They understand them more. They can get in. They can FOMO buy it. All right, and they don't even know where the roof is. People got no idea. All right, this is an advantage they have. So this utopia of let's just make eHEX go to 0 and all the value will pump into pHEX, no. You'll be shooting yourself in the foot if that happened. So, and by the way, obviously it's up to everybody themselves. It's not like one person can decide, but just be careful what you wish for, because if you believe, so if you actually think, so if, I'm gonna let you know, if I thought there was a greater than 20% chance eHEX would actually go to 0 and pHEX would be the dominant one, 20%, that's all I needed, right? Low odds still, 10% chance. If I thought that odds existed, I would have 90% Pulse and PulseX and only 10% HEX, okay? That's how strongly convicted I am about the perception of everybody coming in. The new people coming in, I think will be FOMO buying Pulse and PulseX. I don't think they're going to be FOMO buying HEX. They will be FOMO buying it, but the aggressive, I got to get in now, it's the hot new thing, the sky is the limit, that effect is going to be more powerful in Pulse and PulseX. Easily. I've just done too much ground research when I speak to everybody. I know people who still actually say to me that Richard Hart's a scammer, but they sacrificed. And guess what? They actually say, you know what they say to me? They say, but Pulse Chain's legit. So they'll say, HEX is a scam. They'll say everything's a scam. They say he did really dodgy stuff. They'll say all of that, but they'll say Pulse Chain is legit. They'll actually say Pulse Chain is legit. And I'm like, that's really, really weird about the psychological makeup about somebody who says it's all a scam, but Pulse Chain is pretty good, right? Now, of course, before we end this, friends, you might think, all right, well, hey, what about the liquidity bonding? What about the fact that they're all liquidity bonded? Can't they, if the ratio goes up, it kind of means, Pulse is the spear. Yes, Pulse is the spear. Pulse dragging everything else up. Everyone's coming in for that, and everything's liquidity bonded, right? So you got eHEX, pHEX, PLS, PulseX, the ratios, okay? So everything gets dragged up. Yes, it's true. But still, what about people within the system? Okay, there are paper hands everywhere, man. I think they'll rotate into Pulse. I think they'll do some weird stuff. We've been seeing it, right? We've been seeing it. So if the intervention hand doesn't come, that would be very surprising if that hasn't happened. So you got to understand, for this whole scheme, this game, for the whole cycle to play out here, you need HEX to exist, and you need it to survive. Does Richard himself make this ratio when it comes up too far? Does he bring it down a bit? That's what we don't know, right? You're just guessing. By the way, if he brings down this ratio, he could just be on his wallets rotating a lot of PLS into HEX. So it kind of always gets saved, all right? There's so many unknowns. This is why I'm saying, hey, the default position, the position that I think you can't go wrong is 25. All right, you got to do this, right? 33% Pulse, 33% PulseX, 33% eHEX plus pHEX, okay? That is where you're like, hey, I don't know what's going on. If you have all of these, you're not diversifying yourself. You're not diversifying away your gains. You're protecting yourself, because what if one of the spreads blows out? What if Pulse goes really high against HEX in the next 6 months? What if people just FOMO buy Pulse? The good thing is you own Pulse here. You can trim it and get some eHEX and pHEX. You can do that. And if PulseX shoots up against Pulse, well, you can sell that into some PLS. You can play around with this, okay? It's not going to be the be-all and end-all, but you have options, so you're never going to get left out. What we might find is, because this is such like a sensitive issue, I also won't be surprised if we just get this literally for like 6 months to a year, where all the ratios just stay mean reverting. PulseX and Pulse, HEX and Pulse, every single permutation combination running around, we might find that as well. And in which case, we're going to have to just look at your whole portfolio and compare that to the total market cap. And that's where we're like, hey, it's not actually 4 coins here. It's all really just 1 coin. That's probably, I feel like, where it's going to go in this scenario, okay? So is there a right answer? Probably not. But if you said to me, hey, let's say you just like, hey man, I literally just have $2,000. I got nothing. You got nothing. You just got to throw it in. What do? I would have to tilt towards Pulse and PulseX versus any of the hexes. Even if you removed eHEX and twice the value went into pHEX, that's what I'll have to do, specifically because of ETH BTC. But you're also punting that the invisible hand doesn't come and just shock everyone, right? Because I know how these games are played, friends. I know the people who are holding their bags, they do things, okay? Literally, the pHEX divorced ones, they believe that, the 1,000 people with $40 coming into pHEX is going to set the price. They don't set the price, okay? The people with the big money want to come in. When they want to demonstrate something, they can send the ratio of eHEX pHEX. They can send this to a number you never thought was possible, make you question everything. They do this in other markets. 100% they do. Of course they do. Makes you question absolutely everything. Do you want to take that risk against it happening? I don't. Okay. So if you just do what you're told, you still yield farm when everything's up and everything's working fine, everything's going to be sweet. But I hope now you've seen that this whole idea of, okay, let's just get rid of one and the other's going to go up. No. You're shooting yourself in the foot in this scenario. You're opening a can of worms. Once you start opening the door, that this brand name can be destroyed on one ticker symbol and all the journalists are going to come. once that gets thrown on, that'll be so hard to shake off. You're basically forcing everyone into Pulse and PulseX, okay? So I don't know how this is exactly going to play out, but kind of laid out. I would be more inclined to tilt a bit more to Pulse and PulseX, personally, okay? I would even be happier to do 40% Pulse, 40% PulseX, maybe 20% split between them, just in case they start to do a little wild card run, all right? So you now seen the evidence. You now seen all of this. You can have any opinion you want. This is obviously just what I think. There is no right and wrong, but hey, you know I'm positioned financially for it. The wallet's already set. We'll see what happens in the next 6 to 12 months. Like, subscribe, bell button on. Catch you in the next one.